Welcome. This is Central District 301 presenting in a webinar the District Enrollment Trends presentation that was presented to the focus groups on October 27th and November 3rd, 2015. I am Esther Mongan, Assistant Superintendent.
And I'm Todd Stern, Superintendent. In this first slide, you see our district end-of-year enrollment trends dating back to school year 2009-2010 to this current year, 2015-16. Over this time period, district enrollment has grown by 437 students. And what's important to note is that we have smaller graduation classes. We have larger incoming kindergarten classes of right around 300 now. In fact, our 6-day enrollment this year compared to our 6-day enrollment a year ago showed that we were up over 140 students. Here you see our elementary enrollment trends. Back in 2005, the district only had 3 elementary schools: Prairie View, which is the top line, Howard B. Thomas, the middle line, and Lily Lake, the lower line. The first boundary shift occurred in 2006, and students were shifted from Prairie View out to HBT. This was to accommodate the new growth that began to come in from the West Elgin area. We quickly realized that this boundary shift would not be enough, and plans were made to construct Country Trails Elementary School. Country Trails Elementary School was opened in 2008, and there you see Country Trails as the blue line at the bottom of the slide. Another boundary shift had to occur to begin that increasing enrollment to Country Trails Elementary. This slide demonstrates the amount of growth that is occurring in the West Elgin corridor, because from 2010 forward, you can see the upward trajectory of the West Side of the Western Elgin school districts, both Prairie View and Country Trails, while both Howard B. Thomas and Lily Lake were declining in enrollment. Recently, a boundary shift was done to equalize those areas, and now our 3 largest elementary schools, Howard B. Thomas, Country Trails, and Prairie View, have very similar enrollments, and Lily Lake's enrollment has stabilized and is slowly increasing. Prairie Knolls Middle School, back in 2011, it had 528 students. And we know that 90% of our district's enrollment comes from the West Elgin corridor. So Prairie View is going to do nothing, Prairie Knolls Middle School is going to do nothing but continue to grow over this time period. It became aware to us that we needed to do a grade level shift, not so much for Prairie Knolls Middle School, but more for Central Middle School. In this next slide, you'll see the reasons why. Currently, even as a 6-7 grade level center, Prairie Knolls Middle School has 603 students this year. This is the trend at Central Middle School before we went to grade level centers. Because the major part of our student population is in the West Elgin corridor, and the west side of our school district is established, every year we were losing student population at Central Middle School. What that meant is that every year teachers had to transfer to Prairie Knolls Middle School, and we were running a risk that we would no longer be able to supply the same type of programming and encore courses at Central Middle School that we could provide at Prairie Knolls Middle School. The 8th grade level center has provided stability for our middle school structure. This slide shows our Central High School enrollment trends. You can see back in 2011-12 was the high point of our district enrollment at 1,091 students, and that this year we're at approximately 1,023 students. But what's going to happen is we have students already enrolled in our district that will be entering the high school, and by 2018-2019 and 2019-2020, we will have reached the capacity of our high school, in fact, outreached the capacity of our high school, which is approximately 1,100 students. This means a solution for this enrollment growth must be reached. This slide shows a map of our footprint of our school district. Our district is approximately 87 square miles. As I mentioned earlier, 90% of our district's enrollment comes from the West Elgin corridor. And there you see our schools in that area: Prairie Knolls Middle School, Prairie View Grade School, Country Trails Elementary School. You'll hear people talk about land that we own in Plato Center off of Rorison Road. This is a 135-acre site, which will be paid off in December of this year. This site has a large enough footprint that if we needed to, we could build a brand new high school, middle school, elementary school, transportation center, and practice fields.
One of the challenges that we look at the district level is to consider what is our classroom availability that we have currently within the district. One of the benchmarks that we utilize is the 80% full range. When we start to see buildings within the district get to about an 80% marker, it's time for us to have communication and discussion relevant to what we need to do to move forward. As you can see from this slide on classroom availability, if you look at the 4 elementary schools, 2 of them are already at the 80% capacity or over, and 2 of them are just under that 80% capacity. So at this time, we also want to put that on the radar in terms of having strategies or discussions regarding how we might move forward in the event that we have an increased enrollment that we're looking at or anticipating within our district. Central Middle School reflects a 40% capacity in terms of being full. However, that's a little bit underrepresented in that we've added programs at the middle school level for reading programs, math programs, those types of things. So reality is that basically we have 5 classrooms open each day, but there is space that we could do some accommodations there at Central Middle School. Prairie Knolls Middle School, as you can see from the combinations of the 6-7 center, it's currently at 71% full, so there is a little bit of room for growth at that building. The real issue, as Dr. Stern had just discussed, is actually the enrollment capacity of Central High School. Currently, we're at 93% full. These full markers are really based on taking 25 students per classroom that's available at each one of the buildings. With the 25 student capacity, that's not always really representative of what's going on, since we have courses or classes such as special education, ELL courses, some of the courses for our special population that are less than 25 students. That's where we get in the variance in terms of what percent is full and what percent is not. The high school, at this point in time, I would consider to be really full. We have issues with safety, not only within our gymnasium, but also within the corridors where our students are passing during passing times. It's very, very full. Additionally, we have many staff members that are moving from classroom to classroom that do not currently have their own classroom. And so as we continue to look at the issues that surround our district, the high school is one that is a major concern for us. As you continue to look at the enrollment as we project out, you can see at 16-17 we're projecting about a 94% full capacity. 17-18 is a 97% full capacity. And as Dr. Stern mentioned before, at 18-19 we're now over what would be considered full at 25 students per classroom at 103%. We are reaching some concerns in this area, and therefore the reason why we're holding these focus groups. One of the elements we really want the community members to understand is we know that we need to take care of the current properties that exist within the district. So we always make sure that we have a good capital improvement plan in place that takes care of the capital improvement needs that we have within the district. One of the elements that we wanted to bring to the attention of the community is what's on the docket and what do we know is the immediate necessities within our district. As you are aware, we have been putting air conditioning in all of our schools. The elementary schools have been completed. Prairie Knolls is completed with the exception of their gymnasium. Otherwise, Central High School and Central Middle School definitely need some HVAC upgrades. Central High School's HVAC upgrade would be in certain corridors. Some of the corridors are air conditioned and some are not. And the cost for that air conditioning is about $900,000. Central Middle School, however, is in much worse shape. They are not air conditioned at all. As a matter of fact, they also have an old boiler, so we're looking to upgrade both the boiler system and the air conditioning for a full HVAC upgrade, which would come at a $900,000 marker as well. So for those 2 projects alone, we're looking at $1.8 million. The other projects that we look at for capital improvement is the paving projects and painting and carpet replacement. Those are the ones that you can see are least expensive in terms of our capital improvement needs today, but definitely a necessity. We are looking at making sure we have those things to keep our painting, carpet, buildings in good shape, as well as the paving areas or the parking lots for our community members as well as our students and staff. The roofing projects that we definitely have on the capital improvement need, and we all know roofing is extremely important for us, something we take care of within our own households. We also need to take care of them within our schools. So we have the CMS gym, which is about $80,000, the district office roof, which would be $90,000, and Central High School has a roof that needs replaced for 2 phases at $480,000. The next step that we look at when we consider that we have a percentage that we're bearing upon being full is how are we going to utilize our current facilities, or what do we need to do within our facilities as we look to say we may need to expand Central High School. Some of the things that you're looking at on this slide, we have dollars to. Please understand that these dollars are basically rough estimates of what we believe the cost will be after talking with our architect, but by no means really are final. As we know, and Dr. Stern has talked about as well as myself, Central High School will reach capacity by 2018 and 2019. So we have a few things that we'd like to have community members consider and have discussions regarding. One would be the option of having a new 2,700 student high school, which would be placed on the Rorison Road campus, which you saw on the map and was circled within the map. And the cost for that construction would be a total between $125 to $140 million. The other option would be to have an approximate 28,000 square foot addition added to the high school, which would provide flexibility for classrooms and the common areas, such as the area right outside of the lunchroom or a part of the lunchroom. That cost would be at approximately $5.2 million. Along with an athletic and auditorium dome. We went to see some domes near Hononegah, Roscoe Middle School, and we think that might be a good opportunity for us, and that cost would be about $3 million, and a 250 space parking lot with a cost of $1.7 million. This option would come in at a total of about $9.9 million. The third option, which really isn't an option at this point, we do believe that sooner than later, regardless of the other decisions that we make, we will probably have to move to this for the immediate future so that we can accommodate the current growth that's occurring within our buildings. We would need 3 mobile classroom units, and within each mobile classroom unit, that structure is 2 different classrooms. The size of those mobile units is 24 foot by 80 foot, and then, so there's 2 classrooms at $38,000 for each for 2-year lease, which would mean that for the 3 of those, a total of 6 classrooms, it'd be $114,000 for a 2-year lease. If we took that and we just added on the athletic and auditorium dome at $3 million and also provided for the 250 space parking lot that we're recommending, it'd be another $1.7 million. So for that option, it'd be a total of approximately $4.8 million. The other options that we're considering for the facility expansion between the high school and the middle school would be to take the current Central High School and it becomes Central Middle School with minimal cost. So we just move the middle school over the high school. That would be contingent on us actually passing a referendum to build a brand new high school. We also could use the current Central Middle School to become a freshman center. We'd move the 9th graders to Central Middle School. The current high school would house 10th through 12th grade, but that would be contingent on us building an addition onto Prairie Knolls Middle School for a 6-8 center. Currently, Prairie Knolls Middle School, without the addition, could not house 3 grade levels. That would come at a cost of $5.4 million. The addition would be a possible 12 classroom addition, which is the $3.6 million, increasing lunchroom and common space and the locker room space at Prairie Knolls at $1.8 million, and that's where that $5.4 million comes from. We could also look at how we would expand the middle school, elementary school options. If the current Central Middle School became a Central Grade School, there'd be a cost of about $500,000. The cost to do something like this would be for the purpose of making sure that it was maintained for kindergarten, early childhood, some of the programming we'd have to do to retrofit that building for students that are a little bit smaller than the middle school students. Could also have current Central Middle School become an early childhood center and kindergarten center, where we'd house those students there We'd have to retrofit the bathrooms and some of the other materials for those students, which would be a cost of $1.1 million. Or we could add on to Country Trails with a possible 4-classroom addition at $1.7 million to increase the additional course space for $600,000, and that would be at a total cost of $2.3 million. You may be wondering about the dome structure and what that might look like and why we would think that a dome structure might be a good opportunity for us. The dome structure does offer for us 60,000 square foot. It's a full-size, 200-meter track inside the dome structure, as well as 4 full basketball courts. It does have a low initial cost, as you can see, for $3 million versus a bricks and mortar type structure. It does sustain high winds, which we know at Central campus and the Rocket Hill, that the winds can reach really high levels, but it can withstand 150 mile per hour winds and snow loads of 50 pounds per square foot. I will not read this slide to you, but I would recommend that if you have questions, you may want to look to this slide for further details. These are just some pictures that represent what the dome structure may look like. You can see both the exterior and interior and how it would look on site at Central Campus. One of the things that we felt was important for our community members to understand is the comparison of our current facilities. Why is it that we believe we need a new or an expanded athletic facilities? If you look at the comparison here, the top part represents the Kishwaukee River Conference schools. That's the conference we'll be going to next year. These are the schools we'll be competing against in our conference at the high school. And you can see from this graph that it represents that the gym and courts for us, we have 1 gym and 2 courts at Central, as compared to other neighboring schools or schools within our conference that have 1 gym to 4 schools or 2 gyms and then expansive over a different number of courts. None of them have a field house. You can see where the weight rooms compare, fitness center compares, as well as the wrestling rooms. The other comparison we wanted to provide for our community members is schools that are like us in size. So you can see the comparable in terms of the gyms that they have and the number of courts, as well as if they have field houses or not. You might quickly go to DeKalb, which reflects a 1 gym with 2 courts, but if you look just to the right of that, you can see they also have a field house. You can see that with this comparison, Central High School definitely is not in line with many of the districts that we actually participate with in terms of our athletic events.
This slide demonstrates our bond and interest debt. When Country Trails in Prairie Knolls Middle School was built in the mid-2000s, a referendum had to be passed. This referendum was over $40 million. To pay off the referendum, bonds were issued. This bond debt has been coming due, and the bond debt was backloaded with much of the ramped up increases occurring right now. It was believed at that time that the housing growth would continue in our area and that bond and interest payment rates would be kept low. In 2009, however, the housing market crashed. The bond debt was still due. Now the housing market is starting to come back again. This year, school year 2015-16, our bond and interest payment will be $8.5 million. Then next year, it will be $8.4 million. And then in school year 2017-2018, we'll have a payment over $9 million. However, after that, the bond and interest payment drops significantly. It drops almost in half to $4.8 million. People will see a relief in their tax rate and their payments at that time. Referendum debt limit. Some people will question, well, how does the school district have the ability to borrow money to build new structures? Well, school districts are allowed to go out for referendum and borrow money. You can borrow up to 13.8% of the total value of all properties in your school district. It is projected by December of 2017 that we will have an EAV of approximately $600 million. If that is true, our debt capacity limit is about $63 million. So even if the community would support a referendum, and they would support a referendum that would capture any available debt capacity numbers, The most money available to borrow by the school district in a referendum would be $63 million. Now, assuming that EAV stays completely flat, that it does not increase with new growth, nor does it decrease to a downturn in the economy, how long would it take to pay off a $63 million bond referendum with a stable payment of $9 million? The answer is it would take until 2034.
As we look at this, some of the things we want to consider are the challenges that we're up against as a district. As you can see in this slide, we've recapped some of those challenges. Definitely one of our most struggling challenges is that we have growth coming within our district. That's an opportunity as well as a challenge in that it will outpace what we have for classroom space, specifically currently at the high school. One of the challenges could be that taxpayers choose to not support a referendum. The other challenge, as Dr. Stern just discussed, is that of our debt limit, where we have approximately $63 million available to us when we know that the current high school that we would ask to be built at 2,700 students would run roughly between $125 million to $140 million, therefore making it very difficult to see that as a feasible option. The other challenge that we have upon us, as we are well aware, is that of the state of Illinois and school funding. We do know that Governor Rauner did approve for school funding in the educational arena, and that we are supposed to be receiving both our general state aid payments and our categorical payments. However, we also know that there are other educational initiatives out there that he has not been able to give responses to or answers to in the educational arena because of the budgetary crisis that's going on at the state level and no budget being established. As a matter of fact, as of today, we were just notified that we have not received any categorical payments to date. The categorical payments cover things such as our special education programs, transportation programs, etc. And our general state aid or funds that we receive, generally speaking, we get 4 of those a year, and we'll see how that comes for us this year. The other piece on here is the pension cost shift. Many of you, I'm sure, have read about the pension crisis in the state of Illinois and the assumption that maybe some of that pension cost will be shifted to the school districts. At this time, we're not sure if that will come about, but definitely something that we keep on the radar and could be a challenge for our district as we move forward. As you saw in the modern art presentation, graphic representation that Dr. Stern had done earlier regarding the boundary shifts that had occurred at the elementary school level, because they are never a popular choice for many of our parents and students, it really is a last resort that we go to when we're up against these types of enrollment challenges. And then the other major challenge that we've discussed is both the limited space that we have for both the athletic activities as well as any auditorium or fine arts program facility pieces. Some of the opportunities that we have as a district is that we did build both Country Trails Elementary School and Prairie Knolls Middle School with the option for building additions onto those schools. So they're set and ready to go for additions if necessary. So building additions on those existing schools, we could use impact fees to help us with deferring some of the cost there. However, as we mentioned before, because of the scale of that, probably we would have to go out for a referendum to be able to put those additions on. We could investigate creative ways to use existing space, such as we could do split schedules, such as a year-round schooling, where students would come on a rotational basis to the schools to work off different schedules to try to alleviate some of the enrollment that we have going within buildings. We could try to look at grade level centers within the district. I'm not sure if that's a feasible option, as we have much enrollment at every grade level, so it could be problematic, but we could look to shift there. We could look for online blended learning opportunities where we would give access or a pilot type program to teachers and students that might be interested in this type of program to limit the number of students that enter the doors, and maybe do half of their learning online and half of their learning face-to-face with a teacher. The other option would be that we could look for rental space by neighboring districts who may be losing enrollment, or businesses that have closed, such as Lowe's, etc., as options to open up a building. The other opportunity we have is that we could use mobile classrooms to accommodate for growth. In our district, we have had multiple occasions where we have used mobile classrooms to accommodate this growth, And at this time, we believe that probably we will have to utilize that option just to get by at the Central High School in relevance to the enrollment crunch that they're experiencing. We could investigate the portable structures for athletics and rental of large auditorium space for concerts and special events, using that dome structure to help us provide more space and opportunities for both community members and the school. And then we could also attempt to pass a building referendum. We have established a timeline. As you can see, the focus groups are already done. October 27th and November 3rd. We'll be posting this webcast or webinar shortly. And then we're looking to disseminate the information that came out of the October 27th and November 3rd community input workshops or focus groups on the district website for all community members to see. As well as we're hoping to post information regarding the focus groups in the December 18th district newsletter that will be available for you as well. And then we're looking to establish a subset of the focus group members, approximately 30 participants. And at this point, it looks like by lot, since we had more than 30 participants sign up, to have deeper discussions about where we may want to go, in hopes that we'll be able to take a recommendation to the Board of Education on January 19th at their board meeting as to what the community members think would be a good option for our district as we move forward.
Thank you for participating in this webinar.